you gonna postpone that?
Since the holidays.
I didn't know to do it, so I didn't know it was gonna go.
Boss lady will be there though. You do. The station?
Hey, Glenn.
Sorry? How are you, sir? Oh, sure.
How are you doing?
Yeah. Oh. How y'all doing?
All right, you?
Get back to me, we'll get the copy over here. He said he appreciates it, their business. I'm like, no, thank you, Mr. Sam. I couldn't just tell him to fix it. Put that back.
I just put that at the end. He was talking about. Money kept me.
Well,
There's something on the softball guy, you start to slow
I'll
down.
fix it up like one already bought the dark.
That's not very good looking. It doesn't have the.
No.
All right, I'm going to call the October 5th, 2020 City Board meeting to order and welcome everyone here tonight. We're live on YouTube. And we've got our YouTube channel going. It also will be available after the meeting to view at any time at people's leisure. I'll ask our city recorder to call the roll.
Wayne Anderson.
Here.
Randall Dilldy.
Here.
Royce Hurt. Here. Sandra Clark.
Here.
Kenneth Moore.
Here.
Roy Parker.
Here.
Okay. I've already given some welcome remarks and welcome. Got a couple of guests here tonight that want to address the board about a matter, and we'll allow them to do so. If you would, let's stand, and Linda, would you mind giving us an invocation, and this being the 10th month, Miss Sandra, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Lord, we thank you for this day, this opportunity to come before you. God, we thank you for your many blessings that you have stored upon us. Lord, we ask you to keep your hand upon us, lead, guide, and direct us in the path that you would have us to go. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you have in your meeting packet some minutes of the previous meeting that you've had an opportunity to review, hopefully, and any discussion or alterations, amendments to those minutes at this time that anybody's noticed? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Alderman Klutz has made the motion. Alderman Dildy, the second. If you would call the roll, please.
Anderson.
Yes.
Dilldy.
Yes.
Hurt.
Yes.
Flex.
Yes.
Moore.
Here.
Parker.
Yes.
Okay. Communications from Mayor. There's not a lot to report other than I've sent you a report via email about a caboose that's been offered to the city of Dresden if we should choose to take that caboose. Send it out by email. There's a picture of it on each of your desk in front of you there, as well as the outside as well as the inside. And we obtained a quote for about a $5,000 or $6,000 cost to bring it to Dresden and set it on a section of rail that we would have to install. We'll take that up under new business. The only other thing, we've got free garbage pick or free bulk pickup this week in Dresden. The second one this year, we have started having one last year in the spring and one in the fall. And the Public Works Department has been involved in starting today, picking up that bulk stuff that people might put out at no charge. I will tell you that we've also hired a new employee for the Public Works Department. He's actually in the Water and Sewer Department. We're going to have a retirement of an employee around the first of the year, and I'll announce that later. Let him make that announcement himself, but he's already told me that he's going to retire around the first of the year. So we've picked up one for a possible new employee in that department. Of course, as any employee, he'll be on probation for 90 days during that period of time. Let me tell you too, I am of the opinion that the Public Works Department could use another employee, particularly with the situation that we've had this year where we've had employees out for periods of time due to COVID exposure and things like that. We have one employee that was out close to 2 months or maybe even a little bit longer. So it really put us behind on some things in this city, and we could have used another employee, particularly during that period of time. So that might be something. I'll bring a recommendation to you and how we would fund that at a future meeting. But for tonight, we have an employee that has been hired to go to work in Public Works. He'll be on the water and sewer side, but he's an employee, Carl Stout's who that is. Some of you may know him. He worked for the city previously. He did a pretty good job. He came with a recommendation of our Public Works supervisor that we rehire him. We've talked to him, and I think he will make a good addition to our city. And he comes in already knowing about our lift stations and a lot of other things. And I think that we'll see a noticeable difference in some of those areas.
Yeah, I'm glad he's back with us.
That's all I really have this evening. Input from citizens. I don't know that we've received any through the email, have we? Or,
I don't know when you wanted to talk about
okay.
your other.
I'm going to let our guest right here go ahead and speak at this time, if you want to address the board.
You want me to? Or you want to talk? Oh, do I need to stand up or can I just sit?
You can sit on the floor if you wanted to. It's up to you, really.
Okay.
We're just going to be good hosts for you tonight. Ever what you're most comfortable doing.
This is my son-in-law, Casey Coon, and we sold him some land. And Samantha and them are moving a home on it. And let me see the map. It's right there. Okay. And I was wanting to see if I can get it out of the city limits. I was wanting to see if we can get it rezoned. Is that it right there? It's this one right here.
What's the address, man?
It's Bill's Drive that goes down by
Is it that guy where you live? Okay.
Bill's Drive that goes down by the Sonic, turns to the right, goes down the hill, and makes a left and goes back up the hill. There used to be a trailer there that burnt back about,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, in the early 2000s.
I was wondering when I was gonna do that.
And Casey has the address that it's going to be.
It is sitting inside the city limits. It's, based upon the measurements through the property assessor's
This
office.
piece of property right here.
There's a straight line that runs from Highway 54 all the way to,
It's a little square, what is?
Davis
what is it?
Memorial
Let me
Road.
see.
I've got it.
Can't see it.
I've got this piece of property.
The 11006.
11006 right here.
And what that piece of property.
Yes, yeah, that's what we're wanting out of city limits. See, we own this. We sold that to him, okay?
Okay.
So we're just wanting it rezoned to be out.
It's not really, it's a de-annexation instead of a rezoning.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You would be at the wrong place for a rezoning.
Yes.
What they're asking is to carve out that little section there. There's a straight line that runs from Highway 54, that runs parallel to the Highway 22, runs from Highway 54 to Davis Memorial Road. And then it comes back in at Davis Memorial Road a little bit and then runs in a straight line all the way down to Evergreen Street Extended, as far as designating the city limits. In order to do that, in order to de-annex, you must de-annex in the same manner that you annex. And that means you have to have 2 readings of a de-annexation ordinance and a public hearing on that ordinance to de-annex. And what we would have to do is draw an ordinance delineating what the boundaries of the de-annexation would be. And then from there, have 2 readings of that ordinance and then the public hearing on it. And upon the passage of the second reading following the public hearing, it would be approved as a de-annexation.
Do we have any utilities or anything run out there? Water?
To his place?
There used to be water out there. There was a water line that ran down on the motel side of that road.
But the blacktop you don't even go back there, does it?
The blacktop stops at the back line of,
The bread,
yes.
that's what I thought.
He'll probably
Perkins.
connect to our well. That's probably what he's gonna do. He's gonna do a septic tank.
Okay, any other questions?
How big a spot of land is it?
1 acre.
Do we,
1 acre.
how far does the line come back from 22?
It's somewhere between 500 and 750 feet.
And it runs all the way down through there?
Yes, it runs parallel to Highway 22 from Highway 54 down there.
What's the front edge of this property? How far is it from 22?
I don't know the answer to that.
Would it be on this paper?
No, it's not.
Is it past the big culvert?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we put a culvert in, we had to put a new culvert in too. So, yeah, it's on top of that hill. Right to the left, when you come up the hill.
If I'm looking at the property here, right, is this property inside, it's saying it's inside the city limits now.
It is.
So when you make the curve and come around, it's on the left, is what you're saying, it's just 1 acre there.
It's right up at the top
It's
of the
inside our
hill.
boundary line.
Now, what you would be de-annexing would not be just the little spot right there where that house would be. You'd be de-annexing everything between there and the road, or where the.
We talked at one time about developing that land back there. And that was one of the deals that we had when we run that asphalt there with Sonic at the time. Ever who developed that land up there where Wendell's got on this main drag here, Y'all remember that?
I remember that it was talked, that was before they had actually purchased the property. They
It's
have
been a
bought,
long time ago.
That ain't been that long, couple of years.
it's been
Well, now,
since,
they owned it. How long
Kenneth
y'all
was on the
owned it?
board.
2012, isn't that what
They
Tony
haven't
said?
tried.
2012.
Well, I knew y'all.
Oh, we had a good.
Mhm.
As far as land, there's additional land here.
Mhm.
Ladies and gentlemen, just for the board's information too, I've got the tax assessment viewer pulled up, and based on where the city limit line is now, a de-annexation of this property and moving the line up would also affect property owned by Mr. and Miss George Taylor that's situated on the 54 highway leaving Greenfield there immediately to the left headed towards Greenfield, along with a parcel owned by Gleason Supply and Lumber Company and a parcel immediately next to Mr. and Miss Collins belonging to Donald Perkins. So you got 4 landowners that would be involved and whatever corresponding effect that would have on tax revenue by moving that line up.
I think it would be possible though that you could, the line, I know specifically, the line runs at the very back of the Gleason Lumber, the old Hathcote Trailer Court, if y'all remember that.
Yeah.
That's where the line actually runs, it's at the back line of that tract that is owned by Gleason Lumber now. And then it goes, and that's the reason it was set there, to get all of that in because of the proposed development of that. And then it travels in a straight line all the way from there. In order to do this, you'd have, and leave the rest of the property alone, you just have to come up to their property line, come up to a certain distance, and then go over and then go back on their property line. And you'd be carving out where it wouldn't be any longer a straight line on the property.
So this is the straight line I'm talking about.
I've got it right here. Now, I'm looking at the aerial of this. Why did you choose to sell him a piece of property in the city if he doesn't want it in the city, when there's property that's outside the city you could have equally done?
Well, we were being told one thing and then we were being told another thing, even though we've been paying city taxes.
Yeah.
So we were being told both.
Well, I mean, you're in the city, that piece of property's in the city, but I'm looking at all the property that's owned right there, but you could have easily sold a piece of property that was outside the city.
Well, that was just,
You could,
it's a lot easier.
he could sell you this piece of property back and you could sell him another acre of property south of the line and he's outside the city.
That's more level right there too.
Well,
More level,
That's our guy
That's
utility
a
pole
bad
on
piece
it.
of property.
yes,
so why do you want to be outside the city?
that's taxes.
Your fire rate's cheaper.
Well, that, and I got,
It just one side of it, I mean,
Are you going up there close to where that trailer was? Or are you coming back towards the woods?
no, it's,
The location where he's proposing to build was where the trailer burned
Okay.
back.
Yeah, that's the best.
It's
part.
around,
The rest of it's-
right,
there's
Rest
no,
of it's not any really, I'd
It's already
say not
level.
any good.
it's level.
it's our guy utility
Uh-huh.
pole on it.
It's not level.
And see, he can run a line from that to our well, and we're gonna put a bigger tank on our well. And then he's gonna do his own septic. He's already talked to some septic people. I mean, so, I mean, it's just, I mean, the city won't be out water, the city won't be out septic.
don't know why you're opposed to it.
We don't give the water away, we sell it, so
I
it's
know.
not that we're gonna be out anything.
One,
Yeah, but
we have to delay.
From my understanding, I think it only goes to the meter. I gotta pay from the meter.
So
there.
run
And that's gonna be,
So I can almost just put a well in and be done.
Got a bad feeling.
And I, you know,
The last rezoning or whatever we had there, it's another property, and George Taylor's property was tied into that. What reason, I have no idea. So that's gonna be affecting you and 3 more families out there.
I won't talk to George too. I mean, what would it
Well, we're
do?
gonna lose revenue, we're not, we want people to come into the city limits, that's our goal. That's how we make our money and how we survive here, really.
Mayor, if I may.
Any objection if our city attorney speaks again?
I have none.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, one thing I would ask the board to keep in mind too is not just the request by itself, but also bearing in mind the precedent you're setting whenever you de-annex a piece of property. If you do it for one individual person, there is nothing that would stop others who don't want to be inside the city limits for less taxes to come before this board and say, we don't want to be here. Absent a specific articulable reason that's proven compelling to de-annex property, it's my opinion as your city attorney that it's never in the best interest of the city. And I can appreciate Mr. and Ms. Collins' argument here, but respectfully, when you annex property in, Tennessee law only allows you to annex now by either consent of the landowner or by referendum. And when you start de-annexing property, you're setting a precedent that any landowner who's on the edge of the city limits, who doesn't want to be annexed anymore, can come before this board, and a majority vote of this board, whether it be 4 members of the board or 3 plus the mayor in the event of a tie, can take people out of the city limits. That's a whole lot of pressure to place upon the board at any given time when you already have your corporate limits established. It's not merely a revenue question. It's a precedent question that the city will have to deal with, not just for this current board, but whoever takes your seats in the future to deal with. So please keep that in mind as you're considering this.
We took BH Dial in and then we took it back out. Wasn't too much problem there when we done that on Old Wilson Highway.
Yeah.
And also he's moving over there to help Tony. 'Cause he's sick.
We just,
But of course, BH is a little different situation. We actually moved the city limits line to the north side of Old 22 or Evergreen Extended to get those bridges out so the state would fix them and the city not being required. And we did all the way down to the river on that. Started there at Summers Road and moved to the north side of the road instead of the south side of the road. And that, you're right, that was the one instance in which we de-annexed that I am aware of in the last 45 years.
But that goes back to that specific compelling reason that serves a general public purpose, not necessarily benefit for one private landowner.
All right, do I hear a motion one way or the other?
I make a motion, I know we're gonna go along with it, but I'll make a motion that we, take them out of the city limits.
All right, we had 2 people start to make a motion at one time.
Okay.
Well, ladies first, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, that's
No,
fine.
no.
I'll second it, I'll second it.
You completed yours, so go ahead. That's fine.
I think his was opposite what yours was.
Well,
Alderman Hurd has a motion that we de-annex this a piece of property, one specific property owner, I would say, correct? Okay. Do I hear a second to this?
You're not gonna second it now? Well, I'm sorry.
Do I hear a second to this motion? It declines for a lack of a second, or it dies for a lack of a second. Do I hear any other motions in regard to this issue? Okay. Not hearing any more motions before the board, we'll move on with our order of business for the evening. Thank y'all for coming. We appreciate y'all being here.
So, is it done?
I would say so. I haven't seen the support from the board to move forward with it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. Look over there. It's not the first time, is it? No. We treated them terrible. Crying.
Yeah, let's move on to employees report, or department head report. You have in your packet a report from our finance director, Carla Edwards. Any questions of Carla about this particular report? Hearing none, you received a report from Kerry Cooper, our Public Works Director. Any questions of Kerry about the activities of his department or what's on his report?
Jeff,
Yes, sir.
let me ask one question. Last week, excuse me. I had one question about the paving of some of the deals there. And there's one particular one that was 10 foot wide by 53 foot long. And I looked at that out there.
Are you talking about the one on Evergreen Street, across from the park, where there was a culvert cut?
If I'm at the right address, it looks like a plastic pipe.
Yes, you're right.
We're gonna redo that whole driveway just because of it.
No, I can tell you the answer is absolutely no, we're not. What we tend to do is if there's a cut like that, if it's the city's fault that we're doing the cut across somebody's driveway, we'll normally replace that and redo it. But that wasn't the case with this particular situation. That was a request by the landowner to put that new culvert in, and we, as we do with anybody, we installed a cover across there. And if somebody else wanted a culvert put in, well, that's just what the city does. They'll put the culvert in. The landowner has to buy the culvert, and they have to pay for any fill or anything like that. But that's needed. But outside just normal gravel, that's what I'm talking about. I think we furnished enough gravel to cover the culvert. But Alderman Moore, I'll come right back to you, Kerry. But I am told that this was a request by the landowner to put in a new culvert. And the culvert was damaged. It was bent down on the ends and things. But it wasn't at the city's initiation that we put that culvert in. So I'm not sure that we have a total obligation to replace, to pave over that. And I can tell you for sure that it's not going to be any wider than what the cut was, if we do. And it's not going up 10 foot into their driveway or ever how far.
53 feet.
That's not happening.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Kerry, do you have something?
Yeah, I was all when the bids come in, that price was supposed to be given to the homeowner, and they was gonna pay them for them. If they was willing to pay for it, so that one would be excluded if they're not willing to pay for it.
Okay, and that's the way it should
They
be.
wanted us, the next time we get payment, to get to see if they would pay that and give them a price. So if they don't pay for it, that'll be took off the bid.
wouldn't we just say, okay, we'll talk to Ford Paving and see if they will be willing to do it by the ton rate that we've got, but we don't need to be involved in that one way or the other.
I agree 100%, and.
You know, we can tell the homeowner,
I
is, look, if you want to get on our coattails and work out a deal with Ford, this is what we're paying per ton, see what you can work out.
Mhm.
But we don't need to be having them in the land, and then the homeowner reimbursing us back for paving.
No. And I'd say at the very best, is what the city's gonna do is we'll fill up what the width of that cut is, which is about, I think, about 18 inches wide and 10 foot long or whatever it is. And that would be the limit of the extent of what we would be willing to do. Anything else on that, Alderman?
No, sir, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for that question. After the meeting, I made an inquiry about it as well, because I was wondering as well what that was. Okay, any other questions of our Public Works Director? Our water plant superintendent, Jeff Pierpoint, should be on the line. Any questions of him? Hearing none, our police chief, Chris Crocker, is here. Any questions of Chris?
I got something I'd like to say.
Go ahead, sir.
We write a lot of tickets on Pikeview. I sure would like to see them get off of Pikeview on some other streets.
We got,
Get off of it completely?
No,
No, I wouldn't say completely, but we have a lot of complaints from other streets in town besides just Pikeview. We're consistently writing a very large percentage of the tickets on that street.
34 was wrote this month. Pikeview.
Yep, 36% of the total tickets. I'm getting complaints.
I there and they're getting.
I brought it up before, but I am getting complaints
It's,
of the way we are policing Pikeview. I contend again that the speed limit's too slow. And people roll along there, and I know you're not enforcing it till you get up to another certain point, but I would be fine with setting the speed limit at what you want to go for. Set it at 40, give them 5, and then write tickets, but it's just.
Right. I mean, I'm not against whatever y'all have in mind. That's totally up to you. That's y'all's position, but we're riding with 15 over.
I understand, but what I'm saying,
Right.
the problem that you get in on it is, you've got a lot of people that will drive because we've got it at 30. They drive 5 miles an hour slower to keep from getting into this mass of tickets because everybody knows it. So now we got the whole crowd going along out there at 25, 30 miles an hour. Put it at 40, enforce it.
That's totally up to y'all.
And that's what I was saying a few weeks ago, but
I talked to several homeowners out there, they're not opposed to it. My brother one of them.
Opposed to raising the speed limit?
I mean, I agree, it is slow.
They drive fast out of Pikeview.
But they're usually wrong, and a lot of ours are way over 15. They're usually 20, 25 over.
and I don't have a problem with that. You know, my problem with Pikeview is the speed limit is set too low.
It's one of our busiest, the reason most of the tickets are there, it's one of our busiest roads. That's the road you're taking to get outside the city from
Why they
downtown.
don't drive the speed limit.
Right.
We've had wrecks out there after war and people killed out there and all kind of speeding.
I wouldn't say raise the speed limit after
No.
where
No.
that four-way crossing is, there 89 crossing, but
I didn't want
So
to drive
fast,
past you,
say
I
Pikeview
drive the
and
highway.
right past that, there is a speed limit sign that could be changed. I went out and looked at that also.
I mean, the last 2 months, 67 tickets on one street.
So what do we need to do to raise it?
Well,
I'd like to see, I'm sure you can pull them out and have somebody pull them accident reports, say over the last 2 or 3 years on that street.
Should be able to, there's quite a few, we've had a lot of.
I'd like to see that before I started down raising it and look at it, not just saying there's a bunch of, I'd like to know how many.
Right, and we just had one with a motorcycle 3 weeks ago.
Right there at Donnie Escher's shop.
Right there at Donnie Escher's shop.
Right.
And where you are addressing that corner there, we're gonna put a dangerous intersection ahead sign and
But
on the corner there and.
I'd like to know some more
We have a lot.
We
data, data about that before I start changing things.
We have access to it, we can get it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I could do it.
All right, let's move on. Any other questions of our police chief?
Sorry, Chris.
Any other questions of our police chief?
I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Right.
Our park director, Joy Winstead, is on the line. Any questions of Joy? I think we pretty well have finished all of our softball, baseball, and all of that at our park. We have reopened the park for basketball and things like that. We had closed the park pretty much back down while the Dresden Middle School softball team was playing in order that they could meet all the qualifications and regulations that were being imposed upon by the Middle School Association and as well as the local school board. But since they have ended their season last week, we have lifted that and opened the gates back up and put up. We actually took down the basketball goals because there's no other way to keep it from happening if you. But they are back up and the park is back able to be used as long as we don't have any organized games or anything like that going on.
Senior citizens still closed.
The Senior Citizen Center is working on a plan to reopen it as well. That is under the purview of the county mayor's office because he is over the senior citizens
Department of Aging.
office on aging, and he hires the personnel on that. And it has been closed at his direction, but they are working on some methods of reopening that as well, and there's going to be some limitations on what they can do and how many people can be in, and there won't be any meals or like that, anything, large gatherings there. We do not plan on opening it up and renting it out for the same reason we closed the park now. We're going to try to make it available so that our senior citizens can utilize that facility and not have to worry about somebody else having contaminated it or being in there and causing a problem with them conducting their activities. So a lot of what you hear is based upon trying to safeguard it to make sure that we are able to use it for some activities. And but we're going to work to make sure our senior citizens have access to that building if the county mayor so chooses to open it back up, and we'll work with him to do that. Any other questions? Our fire chief, Paul Hutcherson, may or may not be on the line.
I am on the line, Mayor.
Thank you, Paul. He's got a report here that's been laying on the desk, and any questions of our fire chief? Hearing none, we're going to move on, and I want to introduce one other new person that you're going to see, Priscilla Price, this young lady sitting right over here. She is coming to work for us in Dee Dee McClure's former position with a different title. She's going to be called let me get this right, Community Engagement Director is what we're going to call her. And she is going to be involved in organizing activities in the city. She's going to be working with the Arts Festival and other groups in our city to promote our community. She's going to be working with our business community, visiting with them and seeing how the city of Dresden might promote our businesses and grow our businesses more. And she's also going to be in the other economic development areas as well. But she is coming to us from in that role. She lives in Martin with her husband and 3 children, and She brings some enthusiasm to the job and has some experience in the business area, so I think she's going to be a good addition to our city. But she is stepping into a position that's been vacant since the 1st of June.
Dee Dee's not working.
No, she quit first week of June, I believe it was. But Priscilla will be in that vacancy that we had.
So
Any-
these are not, I'm trying to, how do I put this, so what about the farmer's market? What are we doing there?
The farmer's market, I think this is the last Saturday that it's going to be open. She's going to be involved in the of it as well, and that'll be part of her duties. I don't know that she'll be up there working every Saturday the way Dee Dee did, but we're going to work out a plan. I'm not sure that Mr. Cooper is coming back. Has he give us an answer about that? We don't know for sure that he will be back next year, but we want to develop a different plan of action on what we've done up there and get it in gear. COVID's not been kind to us this year, and trying to develop a plan that would protect people at the market. There was some miscommunication that went on in that regard, and it's hurt us this summer with some vendors coming, particularly when it said that we're not accepting any out-of-area vendors.
Right.
Like,
Well, it's been a hard year, I understand.
it's been very hard, and the other farmers markets around likewise have had their problems, and people have not got out and circulated at the farmers markets the way they have in the past.
Jennifer done a good job.
She has. She's put in several Saturdays up there.
I can keep doing it.
But that takes away from her responsibilities here in the office, because we don't expect her to put in a whole lot of extra hours up there. And so she takes time off here, usually on a Friday afternoon, to cover what she's going to be up there on Saturday mornings, which means that if there's some important decision to be made here in City Hall on Friday afternoons, they've got to find her and ask her the questions and things like that. And she does an excellent job of taking care of business and people who come into City Hall. Any other things? Next month, Priscilla will have a report for us in writing before the meeting. Reports from alderman advisory committees. Do I hear any reports from alderman advisory committees? Hearing none, let's move on to unfinished business. Any old business that we haven't completed? I don't know of any. We didn't have any on the agenda, so we'll move past that.
Is there anything on that, our trailer below me from last December?
That's still gotta be taken up in city court. We did get a judgment on that. He has since asked if he has authority to rebuild the section of trailer that was burned. I need to get a definition of whether that structure was more than 75% destroyed. If it was not, he can build back, and there's no time frame. If it was damaged more than 75%, then he has a year from the day that it was burned to do so. However, Judge Moore will need to release the court order ordering us the authority to clean it up.
What's the status on the lady out here on Evergreen?
She has finished.
It looks good what I saw.
Yes, she's done a block underpinning of it, and she did a good job, and she's still got some that she's going to do around that itself.
Can I ask one more?
Yes, sir. You can ask as many questions you want.
What the status of this land out here at the city owned, deed over, they gonna buy it out here? We got to.
Have the check in hand.
Roll the check over this afternoon and pass the deed off to Mr. Bowman this afternoon. He bought that, and a small piece belonged to this utility across the road there and adjacent to it, so those were completed today. He has recorded the deeds, the city has its money, so we're done there. I can check that off the list.
All right.
$1,600 in city coffers.
No lawyer fee involved.
Well, unless I can carry the weight, Mr. Moore.
All right,
Reasonable fees.
no other unfinished business. The fire department turnout gear bids that you have in your hand. There any questions about them?
How many units are we proposing to purchase?
Mr. Hutcherson,
Well,
12 units?
yes, sir. That's what we're comfortable with. I think we've got some room in our existing budget to add either one or two more this fiscal year or next, but we're comfortable with 12.
What was the bottom line on those, about $3,000?
Well, 28 roughly for the grant.
And then you had to have boots.
That did have boots, yes, sir.
Okay.
Well over 2,400 coats, pants, and boots together per unit.
How do you do the sizing on that?
We have them come in and size the firefighters. So it's a half a year. We tend to base that upon their response level. And then we pass the existing gear, if it's in good shape, to other firefighters.
I see. How long does this stuff last, Paul?
You can have it last 10 years. If you got a firefighter that's doing a lot of internal fire attack, it's gonna be worn out before then.
Okay.
We did have several companies inquire about the specs of the bid, but only this one was the only one that submitted a bid. So,
Was the price in line with what you expected?
We believe it is, and it was one of the brands that we currently use. It's flexible, it's lightweight, it's flame resistant, and our firefighters have been pleased with it over the years.
Other questions? We've only have one bid, that was 240170 for the turnout gear, coat, pants, and boots.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion by Willie Parker to accept the bid, and second by Alderman Hurd.
One thing.
Yes, sir.
Is this on the grant here? 100%
the
grant?
grant,
Yes, sir.
yes. The grant will cover about 11 cents of it.
Very good.
Yes. Okay, any other questions? All right, call the roll, please.
Peterson,
Yes.
Gilday,
Yes.
Hurt. Yes. Lutz.
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to, if you don't mind, it's not on the agenda, but you've received some information about it, about the caboose. Some information we received about it. As I told you about the caboose, it is located in Ottawa, Tennessee, and which is up in East Tennessee. It's the railroad is willing to donate it to us, but it would be our responsibility to get it here. The caboose is currently not railroad ready from the standpoint it's not had the safety inspections and things that it would require to be pulled or towed by train. So they will not tow it here for us. The way that it would have to get here would be via a flatbed trailer with a tractor trailer. And they would load it in Ottawa. They would drive it here. They would offload it here onto the tracks that we would have to prepare here in Dresden. We would need about a 40-foot section of track, or two 40-foot sections of track. That would be installed down on cross ties and at whatever the distance apart is, and then the gravel, the limestone gravel put in over top of the rails and things, or the cross ties, as you would be on a regular railroad track. And they would set the caboose on those tracks. And then what we're proposing to do is have our park guys and to, during the off season, work toward painting it and let's refurbishing it. Lyndall believes that there's a window out in one of them, and I think he's probably right. On the side that you're seeing, we would have to replace that. The seats are out of it, like would be normally in a caboose, where they'd also have a sleeping bunk and things like that in there. But we could obtain seats out of an old school bus and bolt them down in the floor. It appears to be an all metal caboose, which would be some of the ones that people are getting that are a combination of metal and wood. We wouldn't have to worry about wood rot in the future, but we probably would have to sandblast this one on the outside to get the metal, the rust off of it and get it down smooth so we could paint it.
What are we gonna do with it?
It would be put on display like they are in other cities. Martin's got one, Greenfield's got one, Gleason's got one that's sitting on the side now. I believe McKenzie's got one.
We could have had one, I had one, but the board voted against it. So I hope they don't do that to you too.
Well, most of the faces are different on the board here than when you were.
Okay. Is this the only place you can get a caboose?
They're rare. We've been trying for over a year.
I know where two of them are. Off the Grove Road at 69 in Springville. There's two. And a lot better looking ones than this one.
Are they for sale or?
I don't know.
Everything's for sale.
The gentleman that owned them is deceased.
Uh-huh.
His son lives down there, but it's turned left on the Poplar Grove Road off of 69A going toward Big Sandy, and they're set there on the right. He's got two of them plus another car and then a bump car.
Mhm.
But I don't know what they do with them anymore. They just there.
Well, we could,
A lot less shipping.
yeah, this is gonna be,
And quite frankly, it's a lot better looking caboose. They look like they're supposed to look.
This is an old one.
it is an old caboose.
Old one. And that's what's good about it.
Remind me, where are we proposing to put this?
We were originally talking about putting it on across the walking track from the farmer's market over there, so it'd be located at where the depot is. Is what we originally proposed. We'd have to check and make sure that everything would work to get it set there and everything. If not, we'd have to find another location to put it. What is known as what they were gonna call Festival Park one time across from American Drive, we could set it up there because that used to be a water yard for the railroad there, and we could potentially put it there. Or any other location that the board thought it would work out at.
I don't like it.
Okay?
I'll speak up. I
Yes.
don't like it.
You don't like it?
I don't like
this
the
one?
looks of this caboose. It doesn't look like a caboose. It doesn't have the top thing that looks like a caboose. Quite frankly, I don't know what we're gonna do with it. I think for the cost it's gonna take to get here and restore it, it's gonna be an annual maintenance on the thing. And I still don't know what you're gonna do with it. And just because everybody else has got one doesn't necessarily mean that we gotta have one.
No, it doesn't, but,
I don't feel left behind because everybody got a caboose. That's just me thinking now, I'm just talking, I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Well, I think it'd be nice if we could get one. You know, but not.
I mean, this looks like a money pit.
And we can always look at others and explore those up at,
Yeah.
and you are talking, you're gonna be out probably $10,000 to $15,000 by the time you got
Well, I
done.
mean, just think about it, if you're gonna collect railroad cars, which is what you're basically doing, just like you're gonna collect cars and stuff, you need to find the car that you wanna collect.
Mhm.
For me, this is just not the caboose that I would seemingly want.
Okay, and that's the reason we brought it to the board, Alderman Anderson. We're not trying to force it down
No,
anybody's
I know,
throat.
and I'm not saying everybody else can feel different, and I'm not gonna be, my feelings hurt.
But this was the first one that CSX Railroad offered to donate to us. We've been communicating with them for a year or more, I guess, and this was the first time that they had one available for us.
Being we are in our feelings about this thing.
Yes,
I'd hate like a Dickens, like you say, by the time you get it set, done, moved and all that, it's pretty well done. I like free stuff. I don't like paying $20,000, somebody giving me free.
Mhm.
When we got things here in the city that needs to be
Mhm.
spent more on in a boost. We got a drainage problem up there we discussed a couple of months ago. And this guy, his house is up there, I'm sure he's going, I can't believe it. If I was him, I'd say, they spending money on a caboose, and the drainage problem, you're gonna wash my driveway for me. I think we need to put priorities on some of our spending.
Which place is that at, Alderman Moore?
You know where it's at, the drainage problem up here, down behind that BP station, across over there, parking lot of
You're
the,
talking
Oh.
about eyeball.
We've been addressing that. It's not fixed yet, but,
we've been addressing it for 4 years though. Yeah, tell me what.
They have, but, it's in court. It's in court. Both the camp and the others in court.
no. I think we've got off on something else, but, he's talking down by the houses where the culvert has rusted out at the entrance going under the road there. And, it's been some cones sitting there for 3, maybe 4 years. I've been mayor,
Yeah.
be 6 years here in November, and, I know it's been at least 4 years that, we've not cured that problem, but I don't know that it's created a drainage problem for him. It's just,
But I know I can bend down, look on his driveway, 3 foot or more.
Josh and Gary were out there last week.
And it's
Josh and
still there,
Gary
unless
were out there
somebody
last
shows
week.
some dirtiness, but I got down on my hands and knees with it.
I figured that the condemnation board will get on us if we buy this caboose.
Well, we might.
all right, what's the board's wishes? Want to look elsewhere, or?
About everything.
Of course, we did bring this to the board over a year ago and was told to proceed on with it, and that's what we've done. We've not done anything on our own or anything that the board didn't know was going on. We just brought it back, we found something and brought it back for the board's consideration. We can email this guy tomorrow and says, if you run across something else, let us know. And, and
I don't care.
okay, it's
You know, I mean, but
It's irrelevant to me, it's just what the board wants to do.
I would like to see us have one, I would. But, you know, if it's supposed to be free, we're gonna have to pay $5,000 just to get it here.
Mhm.
And then spend all the money refurbishing it, and it doesn't look like some of the cabooses that I've seen. So, I don't know, if we could check that, and see what those are that Gwen's talking about, and see about, you know, if maybe we could purchase one. It's closer to home, we wouldn't have to spend so much.
It wouldn't
money
be
to
as
get it here.
expensive, no, it
And
wouldn't.
it would be the same thing, so could we take a little time?
There's
Time
no,
up.
we can take as much time as this board wants.
It's been taking years.
Well, let's postpone it till, give us till next board meeting to see if we can make any headway with those people, and maybe get one that we could get down here for not,
Mhm.
$5,000.
More road.
It would-
Get the
Pardon?
railroad to bring it to us.
Yes,
It'd be cheaper.
would be much cheaper, and not haul it all the way from where that was up in East
Etowah, Tennessee, and East Tennessee. And
Yeah.
then the second quote that we got was $18,000 to $20,000 to get it here. And that, I knew that was just way too high. But
That's
this
right,
bid
I
was
gotta take
5
on
to
the
6.
rail for sure.
All right, let's move on. We've beat that dog to it's just about done. So we will look elsewhere. If we find one, we'll bring that to the board and let y'all have the say in what we do, whether we do or don't. Since Alderman Morris brought up about down here, I want to, I'll report on what we did then. Maybe I should have done that earlier in the meeting. You've noticed down in front of Bone Brothers, and it's an area that's taped off, and there's some cones and things out down there. That's where there has been, the ground actually fell in. And that is directly above a drainage culvert that we have down in there. It's a 4-foot culvert, the same culvert that is up there that is going under the highway at the BP station that you're speaking of. I don't know what's causing that to eat out, but it's nothing that we've done because the culvert's actually rusting away and opening it up even more. But it needs to be fixed because of it is washing out on what I've seen is on the BP side. It's washing out on that side. I don't know that it's washing out on Mr. House's side, but
Well,
the
that's
problem.
part of that, the exciting stuff.
Yeah.
It's washing.
And we may need to rip wrap on that or something other. We've addressed an issue up between Poplar Street, South Poplar, and South Wilson Street, where we had a sewer line. We replaced the entire length of sewer line between those two streets because the line was broken in a place and it was leaking sewer out into that ditch. So we repaired that, and we have been working in regard to this culvert down there. That culvert is 4 foot round. We've got a quote to line that with that PVC lining, stitch it for them and stuff. That was how much a running foot, Kerry?
That 4 foot was $450 a foot.
$450 a running foot.
270 foot of it.
So you can, if you do the math, you can tell that that was pretty expensive to do that. We're currently getting some quotes to, actually dig that culvert up down through there. What's happened is they went in, they first sent a camera in and saw that the floor of the culvert is rusted out through the length of it. Kerry and Josh went in last week and looked at it, and just to see how extensive it was, see if we possibly, if it just was one little area of that culvert, and it looks like it's through the entire length of it. So now what we're doing on that particular stretch along Pikeview Street is we're getting a quote to replace the entire 4 foot culvert.
Is any of that cost to be applied to the state?
Let me share with you, one reason it's taken a little while this year to do that, since we had that collapse in the pavement there at Jerry Rachel's, Bone Brothers. We first had to find out who was responsible for that. So we went back and we pulled the documents, and it turns out that that street there was widened in 1963. 1963, and the contract between the city and state at that time said that they would widen the road and put in the curves, but thereafter, the state, and put in the culverts to begin with, for the drainage along the street. But thereafter, it would be the city's responsibility to maintain anything that's not between the two curves of the street. Since these drainage pipes sit outside of the curves, it turns out it was the city's responsibility under the terms of that initial contract where the state widened the street to do it. They widened the street at that time all the way from where Bryant's service station was down there all the way to where it met West Main Street. And but it would be our responsibility under that contract. We've asked the state to take a look at it, but they, and Carrie, you correct me if I'm wrong about this, they have told us that it is the city's responsibility to maintain that. And
That's right, just the part under the highway itself, and it's a concrete box cover, it's in good shape. That's all the state says they're responsible for.
okay, and anything between the two curves, they're taking care of. Anything outside of the curves of the street itself, we were responsible for.
It sounds like something we need engineered.
I'm sure we're going to have to.
It's gonna be a big project, and
Yeah.
we don't need to be piecemealing. We need to get our engineering firm involved and get a plan so we can bid it out and start coming up with
Well,
contingencies. How we're gonna do
let
this.
me, just to give you some idea, we're getting Paul Needham to give us a price on the culverts. We're trying to get some estimate of how big of a scope that we could go. And not that, I'm sure it's going to exceed the amount that we have to bid, but we're trying before we jump in there both feet and take off with it to get an estimate on what it would be. We're also looking at the possibility, what if the city is the party that dug that culvert up and put it back in? It's 221 feet or something like that. Dug it up, the existing culvert up, we'd have to put in the 4-foot culvert back in place, put the dirt back in on top of it, and do our best to pack it in. And when you put a round pipe in a square or rectangular hole, you know that you're going to have some settlement around that. Of course, it's going to get back underneath the pipe, the dirt is. So before we went to all the expensive paving and everything, we'd probably have to let it be settled for a year or so. So, but that's sort of where we're at. We're trying to get an estimate on what the actual cost is going to be so we can determine whether the scope of the project and see if we need to try to apply for a grant to get it fixed or something along that line. We could apply for a CDBG grant to repair it, but we may or may not get that grant. Otherwise, it would have to come out of our city funds. And we may have to take a loan or something. But I'd sort of like to know all that information before we make a presentation board. Let's bid it out and run with it.
You'd think those things would last longer than 57 years.
You would think.
Nothing's built to last anymore.
But they're like crunchies, they tell me, as they would stoop down and go through the culvert, that the floor of the culvert was just crunching underneath from the rust. And the dirt on top of the culvert is coming around beside it and being picked up and travel out to culvert. So that's why we had to sink it there in Bond Brothers parking lot. That's why that fell in. So we'll be back with the board with a report when we get some preliminary cost estimates and get the board to give us some guidance on which way we need to run with that.
Would they go back galvanized or plastic?
I'd recommend going back plastic. It doesn't tend to rust nearly as bad. And I think that's what Kerry's actually getting quoted is plastic rather than galvanized.
Yeah, double wall plastic is, I've actually got a price on the culvert itself, and it's gonna run about $15,000 just for the culvert.
This potentially could be a project that run $250,000 or more. It's just, it's gonna be a high price job. So we want to try to cover all of our bases, and when we give the information to the board, give you some information so you'll have something to compare about maybe 2 or 3 various methods of resolving this issue.
And you say they're having problems in behind bombs, thing over there, that's over, they're gonna alleviate that problem?
The problem, actually, the old ditch run down there that come along Child Street, that area down there comes under and comes behind Bones where the culvert was dug out, and it was riff-raffed on both sides of that ditch. But that riff-raff stops at the property line behind Bones. The problem, we've had the Tennessee Rivers, West Tennessee River Association. River Basin Authority has actually been up here and took a look at working on that ditch from where the riff-raff stops behind Bond Brothers, doing some track hole work along that ditch to straighten it back out because it has cut into the bank down to just past Vaughn Bridge there on West Main Street. And like they did with the other area, that work would be paid for by the River Basin Authority if we can get them to approve it.
There you go.
So that's one thing we're working on as well, because that bank keeps moving toward that house, moving east toward the house over there. And that's going to be an issue of drainage. And the River Basin Authority has the authority to do that because it is flowing to a tributary of the Obion River. All right. Anything else you'd like to hear about that? We have been working on the situation. We haven't ignored it, but it's Kerry, as you know, has been out for the biggest part of 6 weeks, I guess, in and out, but due to various surgeries and things, and the death of his mother and COVID, but that's one of the reasons we're trying to get caught up on some things here real quick before the weather gets unable to. The leaves are going to be falling soon as well. Any other business? That's all the new business I have. Any announcements by anyone?
Hey, what about this on the agenda about, are you?
I might have skipped down.
She jumped track.
We talked about that 2 months ago.
Well, they never did this, we never did.
All right.
Anything, did we, or did they come back and just not do it?
I thank all of you for your participation tonight and questions. It's good to have discussion on that. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Got a motion by Alderman Hurt, second by Alderman Parker. All in favor, rise. When any chance I might holler at you just a minute?
Sure.
I'm gonna holler, I'll just be soft.
I can't hardly stand it. Well, that means
You're not the only one.
exercise, girl.
Oh, you would?
No, I mean, I have.
Yeah.
Some food artificial.
Oh, God.
Right.
I just wanted to ask you what